You actually describe him in the opening of the book as being sort of gleefully vengeful, that the sense of vengeance is what made him happy?
He was in a good mood. Okay, so he's talking about how awful all these Republicans were who betrayed him, that if Mike Pence had had more courage, if he had done what he wanted to do, he'd still be president, the terrible things that Bill Barr had done to him, that Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell had not fought for him. And he was like, it got him excited.
So there, Jonathan Karl is talking about Donald Trump and about his interviews with him, what has gotten Donald Trump fired up. We've got a little bit of more bad video for you. I kind of wanted to put this on the show today because we've done a lot of coverage of the stuff that Jonathan Karl has revealed throughout the week. And Brett, we haven't really talked about it. I'm curious what you think about the strategy of hanging on to so much information about COVID and January 6th and Mike Pence and all of this. And also about his evaluation of Trump as being primarily driven by never-ending grievances.
I'm only mad about evidence people sit on that would have been useful and revelatory earlier. Like better brought to my attention yesterday. That I've known since The Apprentice.
Yeah, that's true.
I've known that he's gleefully vengeful. That's the whole thing.
What do you think about like the Mike Pence one or some of the COVID stuff?
Well, that stuff also, like, go back in the library of videos on that subject. And what did we learn? Like, he was hiding information about COVID because, there's character stuff that plays out very transparently in Trump's calculations. What you see is what you get in a very, like, once you find out one thing about him, like his decoder key is pretty simple. It's that he's gleefully vengeful. And he also wants to have his name in the news because he's a he's a marketer, not a real estate guy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you need to know. And what happens to a lot of folks when they get into the public sphere is they choke and they crack and they change something about themselves because they fall victim to the assumption, for better or for worse, that they need to act presidential or act in a way that befits the office. And I think that instinct in politics typically is true. And what that should translate back to is what your voters elected you to do and not what your donors are telling you to do. But Trump never shies away from being gleefully vengeful and always marketing himself.
Yeah.
And no bit of information that I got from Jonathan Karl would reveal that. It is always super weird in books. When they have a book out and this information comes out, is that just stuff that they held on to because they knew it would be better in a book or because their editor wouldn't let them publish it? I don't know.
That's an interesting theory too. I mean, I think if they know that they're doing a book and it's so much stuff, some of that they could have mentioned. But he has a little bit more his thoughts about Trump. Here you go.
You've talked, you've sat across him. He says he seems to believe all this stuff. Did Donald Trump come across to you as somebody who is rational, mentally all there?
It's a very strange thing. He comes out, he's gregarious, he's got a way of trying to charm you. He doesn't seem like, he's somebody that's completely insane at all. I mean, he conducts himself, he conducts his business, but it's the lack of any sense of remorse, I think, that really comes across as there's something that's just not right.
Yeah.
And there's a potential diagnosis for that, if at least informal. But I know this is one thing that we will probably disagree about, and if we do, let's do it briefly. I don't get the trying to charm you thing. I feel like every little thing I see out of him is trying to charm himself. I don't get what he is saying to Jonathan Karl to get Jonathan Karl to like him. The cutting off, the constantly bragging about himself, refusing to accept responsibility for anything he's done. But the complete lack of remorse is definitely there. I mean, I don't know, like even when he was asked about, his relationship with God and with Jesus, they're supposed to have, like, if you're born again, as he's like occasionally flirted with calling himself, you're supposed to be able to acknowledge things that you've done wrong. And he was asked about that years ago and he couldn't come up with anything he's done that he would have done differently, that he feels he shouldn't have done. And it is very like, that is maybe one of the most core things of him, is a complete lack of ability to, well, I can't say in terms of analyze himself. Maybe he does that. Maybe he does know what he is, but he will never ever admit to any of it.
I agree with that. I agree that he knows what he is in a very specific way. does that specific way result in him like going home after he's done being in front of the cameras or in the office? Does he take the makeup off or does he sleep in it? Maybe he sleeps in it and the bed sheets in the Oval Office are just orange because he never takes it off because he doesn't know he has to, and then he comes back on and just reapplies every day. I think that's Donald Trump. In terms of him charming people, he's always charming someone in his mind. And obviously I've seen it where he's aware of the sentiment in the room to a large extent. And is that, that room shifts from the person in front of him. If it's before the interview, maybe he's trying to charm him or whatever. He takes a shot. Maybe I can win this person over. Maybe the office of the president or the gold toilet I sit on and the gold office that we're in is somewhat impressive. I've got a home court advantage. My hair and countenance is intimidating, all that stuff. And if that fails, he then just resorts to the thing we've heard him say a billion times, which is, yo, I'm now charming my base. I always accounted for their opinion of me while I was talking to you, trying to charm you, but I always can default back to 3 or 4 things that are lazy and good marketing tactics as far as he's concerned, which are, you're an evil reporter, so why would I even care what you think? Now I'm charming someone that's watching what's on the other side of the camera.
With effectively like the political equivalent of cold reading, saying something so vague that people can put onto it whatever they want. You haven't made any real claims.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.